In this video, we're going to be talking about how to determine the number of significant figures are in a particular number. And so we're going to create a kind of flow map to be able to tell which numbers tell us about precision and which numbers don't, which is the whole idea behind significant figures. And I'm just going to say, abbreviate significant figures as sig figs, so I don't have to write it out each time. And so to kind of define some things before we begin, a non-zero digit is just what it sounds like. It is any number that is not zero. Such as, 1, 10, 25. Even though 10 has a 0 in it, it's not 0. So, a leading 0 is a 0 that's in front of the non-zero numbers. For example, 0.003. These are leading zeros. And they're also in between zeros. So zeros in between non-zero digits. Such as, like in 101, this would be an in-between 0. And finally, we have what's called trailing zeros. Zeros that come behind non-zero digits, such as 0.0367000. These are leading zeros. These are trailing zeros. They come behind the non-zero digits. And these this terminology is going to be important when we are looking at whether or not zeros are significant. And so the first question we ask ourselves when we see a number is, does the number contain zeros? That's the first question we're going to ask. If the answer is no, that means all digits are non-zero digits which means they all count as a significant figure towards the number of significant figures. So for example, the number 125. There are no zeros. All the digits are non-zero digits, so they all count. So this has 3 significant figures. Now, if the number does contain zeros, the next question we ask ourselves is, what kind of zero is it? For example, if it's a leading 0, then then it would look something like, well, leading zeros don't count. They do not count towards significant figures. So for example, I had something like 0.00156. These leading zeros do not count. So this one doesn't count, this one doesn't count, this one doesn't count. These three are all non-zero digits, so all the last three do count. So that means we have 3 significant figures. Now, if we get a in between zero, meaning it is a number in between two non-zero numbers, then it counts. For example, if we had 2002.22. This is a non-zero digit. This is an in-between zero, non-zero, non-zero, non-zero. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sig figs. And then we have the question of trailing zeros. Trailing zeros, we then need to ask ourselves, if there are trailing zeros, is there a decimal anywhere in the number? Decimals tell us about precision, so if there is a decimal, then it's going to count. For example, if we have 123.00, if we measure something on a balance and it gives us these 2 extra zeros, that means it measured these 2 extra places, and so these zeros count. And so non-zero digit, non-zero digit, non-zero digit, trailing zero with a decimal. And so this is 5 sig figs. If there is not a decimal, it does not count. For example, let's say we had the number 37,000. That's a lot of zeros, but because there's no decimal, there's some ambiguity there. We don't know how far the precision is measured. We don't know if it's rounded up or down. So in this case, because there's no decimal, this would be 2 significant figures. And so this is kind of a flow chart to help the decision making when you're sitting down and you're taking your test, so you don't have your notes in front of you. What's the reasoning I need to go through to solve this problem? So let's do some practice problems really quick. So how many significant figures does each number have? 163. Let's look at our flow chart. And let's kind of reason to ourselves with the flow chart what the answer would be. And so we have, does the number contain zeros? Well, actually it doesn't. That's a no. All digits are non-zero digits, so they all count. So this would be, they would all count. So this would be 3 significant figures. Let's move this around a little bit. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Now we can see that the number contains zeros. Yes. What kind of zero is it? These zeros are leading zeros. Leading zeros do not count. And so, but these numbers do, because they're non-zero digits, so that gives us 4 significant figures. Let's do the next one. The number contains zeros, yes. What kind of zero is it? Well, these are leading. These are leading. But this one is trailing. Okay, so we know leading zeros don't count. This one is a trailing zero. Does the trailing zero count? Well, then we ask ourselves, is there a decimal anywhere in the number? Yes, we have a decimal right here. So this is a trailing zero. That does count. So these didn't count, but this one does. And so we're going to say non-zero, 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 trailing zero with a decimal counts. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 significant figures. And for this problem, we have a leading zero. Leading zeros don't count. And then we have 3 non-zero digits for 3 significant figures.